have any really bad memories of your experience there?
Yeah, you know. Yeah, I suppose. There's always going to be some bad ones, right? No matter what you're doing in life. I guess the worst one for me is that after we left, the Taliban killed that whole family because they were friends with us. Hi, my name is Terry Pody, a lifelong resident of Machesney Park and Loves Park, except when I've been in the military and overseas. I graduated from Harlem in 1980, and then I enlisted in the Marine Corps. Off of Broadway, I can't quite remember exactly where it was, but there was this long hallway, and all the recruiters were in there. And I went one office to the next to the next. I kind of stuck my head in the door and looked, and you couldn't see anything. There was just this desk in there. And you could see this pair of shoes sitting up on the desk with this newspaper. This guy was just reading this newspaper. And I kind of banged on the door a little bit to get his attention. And he didn't move or anything, but you just heard this big booming voice come out that said, "What the hell do you want?" And I said, well, I'm thinking about joining the military, and I've went to each of the recruiters, and you're the last door here. And I thought I'd stop by and see what the Marine Corps could do for me. And he said, "The Marine Corps can't do anything for you, son. What do you think you need to do for the Marine Corps?" At the time, we had a new president, President Reagan, and I think that there was a great deal of us that thought that we were on our way to war in the Middle East, and I wanted to be part of that.
But every president who has occupied this office in recent years has recognized that peace in the Middle East is of vital concern to our nation, and indeed to our allies in Western Europe and Japan.
We got out there to San Diego, and late in the middle of the night, and then they get you on a bus at the airport, 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning, and they take you over to this Marine Corps base, and they tell you to get off the bus and stand on these yellow footprints, and you stand there, and this particular night, there was this huge thunderstorm going on. So it's raining and thundering and lightning, you know. And they left us standing on those footprints for an hour and a half in the middle of this thunderstorm. And right up in front of you, as you look, there's this big kind of gigantic double doors that like lead into the post, right? And above these doors, it says, "Abandon all hope, ye who enter here." And I remember standing on those footprints and thinking to myself, yep, this is the biggest and probably the last mistake I'll ever make. So back then, in 1980, a Marine Corps boot camp was very demanding with long days. I basically remember I was always getting up between 4 and 5 a.m. and basically turning the lights off and going to sleep between 9 and 10 a.m. every night. So you were constantly involved in training, 2 or 3 physical training sessions a day, broken up by lunch and some classroom time. Very physically and mentally demanding.
In Lebanon, we have some 1,600 Marines, part of a multinational force that's trying to help the people of Lebanon restore order and stability to that troubled land. For several years, Lebanon has been torn by internal strife. Once a prosperous, peaceful nation, its government had become ineffective in controlling the militias that warred on each other.
I suppose a lot of folks don't even know that we were fighting in Lebanon for a couple of years back then, but we were.
Our Marines are assigned to the south of the city of Beirut, near the only airport operating in Lebanon.
Flew in helicopters off of an amphibious assault ship, and then the helicopters, when they're coming in, they try to stay really low to the water, like between 50 and 100 feet off the water, because right around Lebanon, the mountains all go straight up. Right? And it's where the Syrians and the Iranians would have all their artillery batteries and their anti-aircraft up on these mountains. And you point a radar-directed anti-aircraft gun at it. The radar can't see the helicopter because it's so close to the water. So you're flying in, and then as you get to the beach, the pilot lands very quickly, and you run out the back of the helicopter in Beirut around the airport, and then kind of radiated out operations from there. Second day or third day we were there, it was really quiet. First couple of days, not much went on at all. We're literally on a beach. Somebody's there usually to direct you, to move you around. We had a lot of trenches and bunkers we kind of lived in. So then they ran us around and said, okay, there's your guys' bunkers, and here's where you stay, and here's where you stay. And then they tell you what you're supposed to be doing, and you kind of figure that out on your own. You get a little bit of sometimes what's called a left seat, right seat ride. If I've been there and you're coming in to relieve me, then I would sit here in the left seat and you'd sit in the right seat. So sometimes a left seat, right seat ride is no more than a guy saying, that's your seat, see ya. So this guy that I was taking over from him, and they were getting ready to leave, he's telling me more and more about what goes on and just explaining more of the situation to me. And then we were going to walk down to the next bunker down for him to explain some more things. And as we came out of the bunker now, we're in a trench line, but still the buildings are higher above us, and then the mountains rise up. And we just walked out of our bunker and we were walking down this trench line, and then the next thing I really realized was I was in the bottom of the trench and I was eating sand. Somebody was pushing me down. And it took a few seconds for that to dawn on me, what was going on. And then I also realized there's just a horrendous amount of firing going on, of everything you can imagine, from several hundred different kinds of small arms firing back and forth. And we had tanks and they were all firing. We had artillery and they were firing, and there was incoming artillery just in a matter of 2 or 3 seconds. I mean, it was literally perfectly quiet, and the birds were flying around and chirping, and the next thing I knew, my face was in the sand at the bottom of this trench, and all this is going on. And as I kind of sat back up in this trench, this guy who had been showing me around, he's like really admonishing me. He's like, when people start shooting at you, you have to get down. I'm like, I didn't know anybody was shooting at me. And he goes, yeah, that's what I'm trying to tell you. You got to know when people are shooting at you. And he raised up a little bit and he pointed upward into this building. And so I looked where he is pointing, and this guy would pop around the corner of this window and empty this 30-round magazine out of his AK-47, kind of like where we were at, and then he'd disappear and reload and come back around and empty another one. And he goes, that guy, he's shooting at you. And I'm like, oh, all right, now I get it. So I guess the lesson here is know when people are shooting at you. As mortar section leader in the company, then my primary job was to give them the fire commands of where to fire our mortars at. We're waiting for somebody else is going to call us and say, we need that indirect fire at this spot. And they'll tell us where they want it, and then they'll tell us where they are. and we want to make sure that we make the mortar rounds land where they want it and not where they are. And mortars are weapons that shoot at a high angle, at a low velocity, so that you can shoot over cover, right? And basically, my job as a mortar section leader was when we got calls for fire that say, somebody calls you on the radio and says, can you support us by firing at this spot or that spot? Then I would direct our guns to shoot at those places. I was in 3rd Battalion, 8th Marines. We were going to be there for a while, and then the next battalion after us would take over, was 1st Battalion, 8th Marines. And then 2nd Battalion, 8th Marines would take over, and then 2nd Battalion, 6th Marines would take over. So just this planned rotation of time. 82 to 84, we were in Lebanon. I think we had 278 killed in action and 900 and some wounded in action. And then we came back from Lebanon back to Camp Lejeune, and for my last 2 years in the Marine Corps, I went down to Parris Island, South Carolina, and I was a drill instructor and primary marksmanship instructor down there. And I came back home to Loves Park and Machesney Park. I think that most of the time I would rather be back there than here. It just seems like it's much more exciting and it's much more fun, and you get very attached to the people you're with to the point that you don't want to not be with them. I mean, that's how close you get.
Today we've had a national tragedy. 2 airplanes have crashed into the World Trade Center in an apparent terrorist attack on our country. I have spoken to the Vice President, to the Governor of New York, to the Director of the FBI, and I've ordered that the full resources of the federal government go to help the victims and their families, and to conduct a full-scale investigation to hunt down and to find those folks who committed this act.
All right, so 2005, must have been, what, 43? Yeah, about 43. I'm 55. I'll be 56. A friend of mine, when I had gotten out of the Marine Corps, this other friend of mine, he had gotten out for a very short period of time. He was from Tennessee. He said that their unit was getting ready to deploy to Iraq. I said, well, golly, I thought, I'll just go down and see the recruiter. So if Ken can go again, I said, you know, I can carry water or bullets to the young guys or something, right? So I just went down to Machesney Park Armory and walked in the recruiter's office. Yeah, that didn't go well. Not happy with me at all. Yeah, not happy. Not happy about that. Yeah. Well, I think in very simple terms at that time, because they would have been 8 and 11. All right, so I have to go away for a year, and the reason I have to go away for a year is sometimes in life, good guys have to fight bad guys. And it's my turn. But Dad, you're choosing to go do this. Yes, that's correct. It's because if not me, then who? First day going to Afghanistan, we just flew in on a large Air Force transport plane called the C-17. I think we flew into a place called Bagram Air Base. We landed and you get off and it's just incredibly hot. And you're like, oh my God, I can't even believe this. And then you're way up in the mountains too. So not only is it brutally hot, but you're just way up there. And you know, you spend a few days kind of just getting acclimated to that. And then from that point, they'll fly you out to wherever you're just defined that you're going to operate out of. places that are called, you'll hear the word FOB, F-O-B said. It stands for Forward Operating Base. It's kind of a larger base out someplace. Larger might be 200 or 300 to 2,000 or 3,000 people. So that's basically first day. Basically what I did was either lead very small unit missions, reconnaissance or sniper missions, or I planned them and then led them. So either somebody would say, hey, we want you guys to go do this over here, or I would say, hey, to my guys, I go, hey, you guys want to go do this over here? And then just plan your mission, what you want to do, and then off you go, and you go do it. We were performing reconnaissance missions, which means that the battalion commander or somebody had defined some set of information he was interested in. So he might say, would you go stare at this particular valley for several days for us, because we are just really certain that they're moving a lot of equipment and weapons and personnel through this valley at night. Or go stare at this bridge, or go stare at this hilltop, or go stare at this trail. And so then we would sit someplace. Now, again, all this is predicated on you're sneaking in someplace where people do not want you to be, and you're trying to remain invisible for the entire time you're there, and then sneaking back out, Hopefully, if everything goes the way it needs to go, you might spend a day or so getting in someplace, and 3 days or so staring at something, and then a day or so getting out, and nobody ever knows you were there, and it was totally boring. Everybody has a specific defined role. On most of them, I was the team leader of that mission. I would have mission command of that entire operation. So yeah, you're constantly thinking about that every second, I mean, literally every second's a decision-making process of what we're going to do and what we're not going to do next. And those second-by-second decisions, that's what determines whether you get back or whether you don't get back, whether you accomplish the mission or whether you don't. A lot of times you just got to say, we can't do this today. You know that you have on your shoulders that we're going to accomplish the mission, but simultaneously you're determined to bring everybody back. If we were on our forward operating base, they had some computers set up there. On the much larger bases like Bagram and stuff like that, there's plenty of telephones. You just call home. I think that they got through it a lot better than I did. I think I had a harder time being away from them than they had with me being away from them. Looking back on it now. There's a particular family that just had a whole slew of kids. Oh my God, I didn't even know how many. And they lived in a village not too far away from our combat outpost, so that some of the times we would go through that village. Well, anyway, I ended up interacting with them and all their little playmates numerous times. The littlest one, she would just sit right on my lap, and because she'd never seen a white person before or a foreigner, she was fascinated by our skin color. And she would just constantly pick at my skin to try to find a spot that it would come off.
Did you have any really bad memories of your experience there?
Yeah. Yeah, I suppose. There's always going to be some bad ones, right? No matter what you're doing in life. I guess the worst one for me is that after we left, the Taliban killed that whole family because they were friends with us. Yeah, when you're coming up on the end, then somebody will come in to take your place, right? And you'll kind of try to mentor them around for a couple of weeks. And we went through that little process. And then that last day, you know, a helicopter going to show up to our combat outpost. And that's the one you get on. They fly you back to the big air base, flew us back to Bagram. And then hung out there in Bagram for a few days until another C-17 showed up. Basically got on the planes in Uzbekistan, and I think 2.5 days later, got off them at Fort McCoy, Mitchell Field. It's Mitchell Field right by Fort McCoy that we fly into. And then the entire battalion had a ceremony at Soldier Field in Chicago. So everybody went to Soldier Field, and they had the whole battalion out there together, probably 800 or 900 of us. And a lot of families attended and things like that.
My name is Samantha, and I'm a senior within the Harlem Veteran Projects class. My veteran is my dad. I have had a lot of people ask me if it's hard to do this because he's my dad, and some of the emotional stories that he tells and have told people have gotten to me just because it's my dad, and it's made a lasting impact on him. When he was deployed to Afghanistan, I was only about 8 or 9, so it had a really big impact on me just because I didn't understand why he was going, but also made a really big impact on my brother because he was 11, so he ended up being the man of the house while my dad was gone, so that was kind of a really big responsibility for him to take over. And then also, we just had to take care of my mom while she was gone. It definitely made a really big impact on her as well because obviously that's her husband, and it wasn't easy seeing him go. A lot of times when people are deployed, you don't want to have a negative output, but you're not sure when it's been a year or years, you're not sure if that person's going to come home, and I think it leaves a really big impact on the family. I definitely remember being really excited to see my dad because it'd been a year, and I know that it was just kind of the deal of, if not him, then who will take the charge to fight for our nation, to continually fight for my family's freedom and every other family within America. And although he lost some brothers and sisters in arms while he was gone, I was really glad that he came home because I'm not really sure what would have happened if he didn't. I knew he was, but at that age, I just wasn't sure because I didn't even know what was going on. So about 10 years after my dad enlisted with the Illinois National Guard, my brother ended up enlisting into the Illinois National Guard as a combat medic during his junior year of high school. And now me, as senior, during my 17th birthday, I enlisted into the Illinois National Guard. So it's kind of just like a family thing, I guess, and I wanted to kind of continue what my father had done, what my brother had done. Making this documentary for my dad has just been a really big impact on me in general, just because it helped me get closer to my dad, helped me understand the war more. It made me realize that some wars go left unknown, like the Lebanese Civil War was. And even though obviously a lot of people do know about it, when I talked about it, when my dad talked about it, a lot of people were like, that was a war, or there was some crisis going on over there. And I think that it's really important to just keep up with your historical dates and your historical battles, and as the years go on, it's important to write down and keep track of things that happen. So my dad, he definitely wants to be deployed again. Like he said, I'm graduating, so there's not really a reason for him to stay home anymore, I guess. And my brother's out at college, so he's not really there at home either, unless like it's summer or whatever, or some breaks. I'm extremely thankful for my family and everything they do for me, and if it wasn't for them, I probably wouldn't have even taken this class, as well as my friends. To my brother Ethan, I want to thank you for everything you do for me. I know you weren't exactly the most keen on me joining the National Guard as well, but I just felt like I guess that was something I needed to do. I needed to make my own choice, and that's what I did. So thank you for always supporting me, even if it's not something you wanted me to do. My mom, thank you for all the hard times that we got through together. Thank you for always being there for me despite the fact that I'm not always the easiest person to talk to or I lose my temper easily. And lastly, to my father, thank you for your endless service to this nation. I know I don't say it often, but I'm thankful for everything you do for me, and I'm thankful for how much work and how much effort you put into this family. Thank you for your service, and thank you for helping me be the best person I could be, even when I felt like I couldn't be. I'm extremely thankful for everyone who helped me out, who helped me make this documentary, and for everything else. I'd like to give a special thanks to Newnham and Staney because they continually pushed me and they were really helpful with just everything that was related to, not obviously everyone else in the class, but also just helping me make this for my dad.